Join me in a prayer and our pledge. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have the council member roll call, please.
Mr. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Alberink?
Here.
Mr. Lindeman?
Here.
Mr. Fish Escher?
Here.
Mrs. Edichico? Here.
Motion to excuse Mr. Gertz and Mr. Lynn.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Fischescher, second by Mr. Powell, to excuse both Mr. Lynn and Mr. Gertz. We knew they were not going to be here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, they're excused. No minutes for tonight. There's a few things that are being added to the minutes. We'll get those next time in 2 weeks. Any audience participation? Anyone who wants to address council, step up to the microphone. Name and address. You got about 5 minutes if you can use them all.
My name is Tim Schmidt. My home address is 12215 Pickwick Place, Sharonville, but I'm a member of the PFT Enterprises, LLC. PFT is P for Phil, F for Frank, T for Tim. We own property at 8633 and 8643 Reading Road. We also own property at 424 and 426 Jefferson Avenue. 2 weeks ago, I was here and talking about, and I guess it's the first ordinance on the agenda here that was discussed that I am opposed to. I don't think it ought to be passed. Obviously, I don't get to vote for any members of council here in Reading. Then I think that since there had been so many changes to that ordinance, it ought to be started from the very beginning, not say, okay, we'll have reading 4 today. I think we ought to go back and redo it, make sure it's all right, and have reading 1 in 2 weeks. The other thing, last Tuesday, a week ago, I was here and there were several other people here for, I don't know if you want to call it a meeting, a get-together, whatever. But Mr. Gertz introduced or gave us all copies of an ordinance, and I guess that's the ordinance. It's number 3 on the list here as far as the agenda today, which basically would replace the other ordinance. And according to this number 3 ordinance, there's Ohio Revised Code that says all of this has to be done. You have the city Reading Law Director. You have the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office. You have the Ohio Attorney General's Office that can go through and find all these people and make sure that they obey the law. To me, these 2 ordinances are just repetitious of a state law. That really, what takes precedent? City ordinance or state law? I'm not a lawyer, but I assume it's probably state law takes precedent. So again, I'm just opposed to both of the ordinances. I think they ought to be eliminated. I think it's redundant to have a city ordinance and a state ordinance. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience that would like to address council? Then we will continue. Thank you very much for your comments. Reading of any communications?
Yes. All right. This was an email sent by Don Likens. It is also in response to the residential rental property ordinance, the Katie's. It says, Council, has anyone looked into getting the landlord info from the tax department? This could be allowed by a new city ordinance. See email below. If not, Tony Gertz came up with another idea, that is, pass an ordinance which allows Reading to enforce the Ohio Law 5323.02, which mandates all landlords file with the county. This way, landlords don't have to provide the same information 3 times. It'll give teeth to Reading with enforcement of an existing law. Please do not pass Katie's ordinance, and if you don't want to get the info from the tax department, pass Tony Gertz's ordinance. And then we have a letter from Miss Peggy, I believe it's
Taggart.
Tegeter. All right, Tegeter.
Sorry.
It is dated August 2nd, 2021. Dear Council, good evening. My name is Peg Tegeter. My family and I reside at 17 Gall Terrace. For some time now, the house at 19 Gall Terrace has been the topic of conversation. This particular home is the reason we are in strong support of the rental registration Mrs. Edichico is trying to implement. I would like to lay out some of the situations and unpleasantries we've dealt with while trying to make contact with Vinebrook, the company that owns the home. Many, if not all of you on council, are aware of the unsightly display at 19 Gall Terrace, starting with the front of the home. Typically, the leasee is responsible for the lawn maintenance and general upkeep of the outside of the home. The leasee did not maintain the lawn on a regular basis. In fact, I can count on one hand how many times in a 2-year span that the lawn was cut. The lack of lawn maintenance made the house drab and was unpleasant to look at, not to mention what could be living in the tall grass. Sadly, as the neighbor to 19 Gall Terrace, more was to come. As time continued to pass and one of the leasees began to be more distant, it left the other leasee there alone. It was apparent that the female leasee struggled with her mental health. The tall grass became the normal for this home. As the female leasee became more unstable, her behaviors were reflected in the shape of the home. On one of her many rampages, the leasee threw an object from inside of the house through the bay window. Glass shattered everywhere, including our yard. She left it lay where it landed. My husband had to go out to pick up the glass from our yard. The glass would remain in her yard for several more months. In addition to the glass that shattered in both yards, the window remained as is. Day in and day out, we were left to wonder when the window would be repaired. In frustration and concerned, we attempted to reach out to Vinebrook to report the unsightly situation. After jumping through hoops, we made contact with an accounting associate for Vinebrook. We were sent to the manager of this area and left a voicemail. We left a detailed message stating the current conditions of the house and our names and number that we could be reached. Vinebrook never responded to our message. The windows sat, busted out for months to come. When winter came, black garbage bags went up in the window. Finally, the busted window was covered, but still an eyesore. Why did a window sit for months upon months with nothing covering it, and then garbage bags? Would you be okay living next to a house that is unsightly? Unfortunately, the broken-out window wasn't where the leasee stopped. We had many things thrown at our house, such as empty liquor bottles, plastic plates thrown from her upstairs window that landed in our gutters, buckets of urine and fecal matter. Yes, that is how she would rid the house of her bodily waste when her water was shut off. Dumped down the side of the house from the upstairs window, and so much more. As time continued to go on, the condition of the home worsened. Many folks from Eagle View would slow down in disbelief and horror. The overgrown grass and busted-out window would become the norm for the leasee. We attempted many times more to make contact with Vinebrook, all of which were unsuccessful. My husband and I began to reach out to Patrick Ross and Mrs. Edichico to determine the best possible way to get this situation rectified, but not before things became even more outrageous. In fact, the fine folks that reside up the hill in the Eagle View neighborhood were an incredible help in our voices being heard. The leasee kept her car filled with things, and she would take those things in and out of the car. Those belongings would end up on the telephone pole at the apron of her driveway. In another episode, the leasee spray painted her car and the garage door. In that same fit of rage and instability, the leasee busted out her glass storm door. Then the front door was taken off its hinges to keep the house completely open. During or around this particular rampage, the police responded to a non-emergency call made by us. We asked that they check on her because of what had recently happened, and we didn't see her for quite some time after the episode. Upon entering the home, the police officers quickly found her home to be in deplorable conditions. The police officers did not go into much detail, but they did say the leasee left the burners of the stove on and unattended. Let me repeat that. The leasee left the burners of the stove on while unattended. Couple that with the deplorable conditions and the fact that she left the house completely open, and we could have had a serious issue on our hands. The house could have caught fire due to the burners being on, and something very easily could have dropped on the burners, igniting what could have been a devastating situation, not only for her, but for my family. Why did it take an abundance of non-emergency phone calls, police checking out the situation, and many unhappy residents in the Eagle View neighborhood to get action on this property? We have lived in misery, disgust, and the wafting stench of an unkempt home, and worry that at any moment we could be waking to a serious emergency at the hand of the leasee. I ask that you truly think about what you would feel to live next to that neighbor that doesn't maintain the home in which they reside. Also, I ask that you take into consideration what Mrs. Edichico is trying to accomplish with the residential registration. If there is a rental registration in place, imagine the possibilities. We would not have to wait through the disgust, frustration, unsanitary conditions in which we dealt with. The landlord or company would be notified and get the situation taken care of. If the leasee isn't going to be held responsible, it is due time to hold a landlord or company responsible for the property. Remember, a lot of resources and man-hours were used to make contact with Vinebrook in regards to this leasee. I could only imagine the time, money, and frustration that would be saved if the rental registration would be implemented, especially because Vinebrook isn't the only rental company scooping up homes in the area. Remember, there is another company that has bought several houses in the area and will be renting them out. The landlords or companies aren't always worried about the properties and how they are maintained, but more worried about their bottom dollar. It is imperative that a rental registration be born. Expectations need to be set, and owners of rental properties need to be held to those expectations. People are banging down doors to live in the great city of Reading. It would be devastating to see this great city turn to rubbish because the owners of the rental properties aren't being held responsible for the maintenance of their homes. I thank you for your time and pray that all of you take the time to seriously understand how wonderful it would be to have rental registration available. We need to keep moving this great city forward. Sincerely, Peggy Tegeter.
Motion for the correspondence to be received and filed.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lindeman, second by Mr. Fischescher to mark both of the correspondence received and then filed. All in favor?
Aye.
We have audience participation. They want to come back up. Is council okay with, you can step on up and talk then.
Again, Tim Schmidt, in regards to that, that's one landlord. When we bought the property, and from what I understand, when people buy property that they are going to rent, there's a form at the Hamilton County Auditor's Office that has to be filled out, has to be completed. That anybody can go to the Hamilton County Auditor's Office and find those forms to be able to get in touch with the landowner, the landlord. So again, I mean, the laws are already on the books. Why do we need another one?
Can I
That's,
respond? I'd
We're
opportunity as well.
repeating what you said before. So, Mr. Lindeman?
I just want to point out to you, Tim, that in the ordinance that Mr. Gertz has, he states here in section 4, the City of Reading Council hereby, this ordinance establishes a new criminal violation which shall be codified accordingly in the City of Reading codified ordinances
and such criminal violations shall be designated as a fourth-degree misdemeanor. So he has a little bit of a different curve here. The Katie's ordinance purposely does not have any kind of a penalty for people like you. And so that's why Mr. Gertz put this in and added something like that, so that there's a little more teeth in it.
Okay, I guess my next question is, since since we are already listed with the auditor's office, would we have to go through all the process again?
Mayor Bemis.
Dave
Oh,
wanted to respond.
Dave,
Go
Mr.
ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Mr. Powell.
I can assure you that doing our due diligence for this ordinance, the auditor's office list was collected, downloaded, and analyzed. Incomplete would be a good word for it. A lot of owners are not doing the right thing, not following Ohio Revised Code, not registering their rental properties with the auditor as they should. So just to let you know.
Thank you.
Mayor
Okay,
Bemis.
You know, Tim, and maybe Katie can take over. Look, you know, for responsible property owners, Tim, I see this doing nothing. You know, sometimes we have to take a ball in our own hands when people aren't following county and state laws, and we have to reinforce and do things ourselves. This is simply, I told people, when I first heard this, I was not for it. But you know, both my fire chief, my exterior property maintenance code enforcement officer, and my safety and services director were entirely for it, for the simple reason of what Peggy Taggart pointed out, our difficulty and the length of time it takes to get rid of some of these people who don't abide by the state and the county laws. And it's a simple attempt, Tim, but it's not going to harm you in any way, shape, or form. And you know, I read somewhere where it was punishing people. And for the love of me, you know, my wife and I own 3 rental properties. If I got to write rental property A, B, and C and hand it into the county and the tax office, I don't think it's much punishment for me to also to hand the same piece of paper to an office that controls exterior property maintenance and code enforcement. Tim, I'm all with you, 100%. All this is, though, is an attempt by our city to have the ball in our hands, and there is a penalty for not.
Is there?
Yeah, for not, signing up. So there is teeth. So go ahead.
It's a civil fine, Don, the way the ordinance is written. It's not a criminal fine.
Right. Yeah, so it's,
Well, it's not a fine, though. It's only if you don't do it. It's
a late fee.
There's no cost
yeah, no
doing
cost.
it, right?
It's a late fee. If you don't file it, you got to pay a late fee.
Yeah.
Well, and as I mentioned before, I have problems with there not being any fine. And also, I have problems with the fact that we have not provided any kind of monies for the administration of this. Let's face it, somebody's got to do this. And we talk over and over again about how we don't have a whole lot of people, but we don't have the people to do this. And, I don't have any problem with it, but the other thing I was reading through this, what about business rentals? Let's face it, we've been talking a few times in the last year about a couple business properties that haven't been kept up either. And there's no mention in here about that. I don't know if we need to include that, or if we want to include it, or if we can include it. But there's nothing in here about business rentals.
Well, Dennis, if I could, all I know is this, from the people who are going to administer it here, as in the fire chief, the exterior property maintenance code enforcement officer, and our safety and services director, they feel it will save them time. It will be less time for them. The only time that they're ever going to use this is when we have our blatant offenders that take forever to get a hold of. This isn't, to me, all of a sudden, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe Katie can correct me, this isn't going to be the most proactive thing in the world. It's going to be in response to negligence. So Patrick's looking forward to it, Todd's looking forward to it. Ricky Martin popped his head in my office the other day and said he was totally misquoted, as in when people say that he has no problem getting hold of people, because he does. It's constantly, I look at Rick and say, hey, Rick, we're having a problem here. And a week later, Rick, we're still having a problem. Bo, I'm having trouble getting hold of him. Month later, I'm still having trouble getting hold of him. 2 months later, they're in Timbuktu and hard to get a hold of. This is simply, this isn't to punish, harm, or hurt anyone. I promise that I have gotten right here in this room from police chief, safety and service director, and exterior property maintenance code enforcement officer. So enough for me.
All right.
Yeah, this is basically just having a contact person to go to for situations like this, because this sadly isn't isolated, what the Tegeters have gone through. I've had several other people contact me with houses on their street or right next door that are just as bad. Everything from weeds and grass growing up to gutters hanging off and dog waste and you name it. So that's not an isolated incident. So it's basically just to have that contact person that we can reach to say, this property that you manage or you own needs work, needs to be fixed up, or whatever the issue is. And so we're not jumping through hoops and going through months and months of trying to track somebody down, leaving voicemails, getting no response. And then to answer Don Lankin's question, again, as we've said, we cannot get the information from the tax department. It can't be shared. We cannot change that by an ordinance. That is out of the city's hands, if I'm correct. That's a state law, federal law.
You're correct.
Yeah, so they cannot share any of the information they collect. So anything that goes to the tax department is off limits.
But you don't have to convince me that it's difficult to contact people, find people, because I did it, well, I didn't do it, but 12 years I was here, and other places as well that I've been. But the fact of the matter is, passing a law like this isn't going to just necessarily make it happen, and there's no, what's the penalty if they don't do anything?
It would be a $100 fine in my ordinance. Mr. Gertz, again, has...
Well, what if they give you the information, but they still don't do anything?
Well, if they give us the information and it's current and there's no issue, then there's no penalty.
You think that's
for it.
going to assure that they're going to do something?
Yeah, then
Are you saying if
even
the
if you
place
know
is
the
bad?
person,
If
what's
it's-
going to make them do what they have to do?
Oh, to follow up? Well, then that would go through the building department, which would be the same thing as for anyone with the property maintenance.
See, and I don't know, and Dave, please, at some point, we can cut your grass and assess it to your
Right.
house. I don't know if there is a busted-out front bow bay window. I don't know when it comes to that point. It seems at some point, we should be able to
Look, we
condemn.
we have existing structures code and we have exterior property maintenance code. The issue that this ordinance is trying to resolve is a contact point.
Yes.
The criminal ordinances that we enforce in mayor's court involving the exterior property maintenance code and the existing structures code are there. They're daily violations if somebody doesn't comply. I can tell you, it's very difficult to get people to comply even with those ordinances. We've had a guy up on Fifth Street that we've thrown in jail once and had to threaten with jail again because he absolutely refuses to live in a civilized manner. And it's extremely difficult even once we get them because they don't show up for court, and there's very little we can do in terms of grabbing them and making them show anymore because none of the jails around here will take mayor's court offenders. So, we have other people who come in, peel off their 250 and go away till they get caught 2 weeks later and come in and do it again.
And I know, two of the bigger violators to us, and not to name anybody by name, but a place that sells chicken in our community and a pharmacy, to try to get them to abide by exterior property maintenance. But with what we have and Ricky Martin's persistence and Patrick's and a contact number, we don't get any snap results out of them, but at least we're able to accomplish things in a reasonable amount of time. This is an attempt to be able to help us, help ourselves. That's it. So anyway, how you all vote is how you all vote. But I encourage you, from our point of view, here at City Hall, we would like to see it passed. So, amen.
Okay, that was, again, council has no problem with hearing another audience, okay?
I'm Shirley Leach, and I own the Cherryfield Apartments on Hunt Road.
I just want to know what the final ordinance is, because there's been so much back and forth. I don't know what you guys are even voting on. You know, I mean, what's the final ordinance?
Okay, well.
Can you read that?
We can if we get to that point.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because
We'll
I'm
read it.
confused about what the issue is. I mean, do I have to list all my tenants again? You know,
No.
you know. You know, I mean, that's a big job for me. I mean, I'm a small landlord, you know what I mean?
Well, I promise you, if this passes, I'll get you my name and number, and we'll make sure we get you everything you need to be in compliance. It will not
That's what I
be that
wanna know.
difficult. We will,
I mean, I have had no issues with Reading at all. I mean, I've owned a building since 2001. You know, I keep my property up, so.
yes, and that's the way we love it. We don't like to be a pain in anybody's side here, no one. We're public servants trying to serve. This is to help us serve. That's-
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. No guest speaker this evening, and no executive session that was established. We will go to guest administrative official reports. Mayor's report, Mayor Bemis.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. You know, first tonight, a lot of very, very good things continue to happen in our community. This evening, we had our National Night Out at Koenig Park. Our police department works very, very hard at that. So does our fire department. I found out today that $0 out of our general fund, or $0 in city dollars were used for this National Night Out. And neither are any general fund dollars or city dollars for CPR classes that our fire department does an incredible job. For instance, with Reading Youth football coaches and other athletic coaches and businesses and Meals on Wheels operators, that they give these CPR classes out of money they raise on their own. And tonight, in fact, it should be ending any minute at Koenig Park. You know, that happened at no expense to our general fund dollars. You know, what I loved about tonight is community-oriented policing was a very important issue for me as I became mayor. And we've done a very, very good job at it. And I'm not saying it wasn't happening before I became mayor, because I'm sure it was. But it was a top priority for me. And in my years as mayor, we now have a school resource officer. We do a DARE program to help kids resist alcohol abuse and drugs. And we've done active shooter drills. And we help with all kind of things with our schools and through our police department, our fire department as well. You know, one of the main things for me tonight, though, to witness is what mutual aid means to us. You know, at Koenig Park tonight, we had Hamilton County there. You know, we had a couple helicopters there. We had Blue Ash Police Department represented, Amberleys, Lachlan's, Evendales, all of which are very, very helpful to us and us to them. But when you go tonight and, you know, you see the uses of drones and canine units and the many, many other things that are available to us, because we work very, very closely with other communities, it was neat to see. But, you know, a good night for us again. You know, I've always wanted our citizens to have opportunities to get to know our police officers, our firefighters. Tonight was an excellent example of that. You know, they reach out. We want y'all to know them, and they want to know you, so they know when they're responding, who they're going to see, and as much as they can about you. Tonight, you know, one of the booths that I encouraged was the 911 alert. And I asked people to go to the Hamilton County and sign up for that. It's a way for us to get a hold of people in emergencies. And we used to have a code red here. We don't anymore. That became obsolete, so it's Hamilton County 911 alert. I hope I didn't state that wrong, but please, you know, look it up, get signed up. It's a good way for us to get a hold of you. You know, our pool's been having an excellent year. Again, you know, to me, it's an excellent deal, $110 for a family there. We've had a hot summer here. We're going to have some hot weeks to come. And, you know, people have been having a great time at the pool, and we love that. You know, as I ride around town, I see Reading Youth football and all their volunteer coaches keeping our young kids in good shape, Reading Youth soccer. You know, again, I can't thank enough the incredible volunteers in this community. You know, people go around and pick up litter that shouldn't be there, people that are part of our neighborhood watch programs that look out for their neighbors and call police when they see suspicious and illegal activity. You know, if we're going to be the best that we can be here in town, it takes all of us. And so proud of the many, many volunteers here. You know, our schools are going to be starting up here again soon, our excellent schools. And they're our excellent schools. But I ask people, please slow down as you drive. Please be patient, you know, and please keep an eye out for our young students trying to get to and from school. You know, this year, you know, we have the extra challenge of Thornridge Drive, you know, under construction. We've been working with Duke Energy. Thornridge Drive got a slow start because as we widened Thornridge 18 inches both ways, the gas feed boxes have to be redone, and a lot of them weren't buried deep enough and weren't in good shape. We have an extra crew showing up this week to try to get that done. Already spoke to the foreman of that job a couple times. Hopefully, you know, during school, they will not start till well after 8 o'clock when our Reading High School students, I believe, start at 7:20, and elementary's right around 8 o'clock. I got to get that down pat. But anyway, they're going to work with us, so they're not blocking any part of Thornridge Drive, which is a major feed. You know, we want people to remember as they come from Cherryfield, you know, to turn on to Sanborn and reach Bolster that way by the old Hilltop School. That would be the easiest way to get on up Bolster. And again, we will keep Thornridge from being blocked off till at least 8 o'clock. That was the agreement as of today, and they're communicating with us every Tuesday. And if anybody else has any other requests of them or any complaints, let me know. But another huge project up there on Thornridge Drive. I'll go over that in a little bit. You know, we have a lot of road projects here in town. This has been a summer like none other to me. But, you know, at long last, improvements on Reading Road at our southern border, many years in the makings here. That work will start soon. And it's going to be a long, drawn-out process down there to make it safer, have more sidewalks, have more lighting, have crosswalks, to make that safer. I heard today they're halfway completed with the bridge at North Reading Road. That's a state project. That's all state dollars, but needed to be done. Early in my high school career, that bridge collapsed. It was a major pain. I don't know if Denny remembers that one, but we had Reading Road a mess for some time. We found out North Street, we got state capital improvement dollars to redo North Street. So there's some major work there. $566,000 worth, as a matter of fact, half of that in grant dollars. Tomorrow we open up bids on Benson Street, so we'll know more about Benson Street being repaved from Jefferson to the Mill Creek. Really, we're going to go as far as our community development block grant dollars take us there. You know, we continue to work on the Nivison property. You know, back in 2006, we got a $2.3 million grant, or that would still be sitting as a very dilapidated and dangerous Nivison Weiskopf building. It's come a long, long way. We are this close, you know, to jobs there finally. And we could have had jobs there years ago, but it is zoned for research and development, high-paying jobs, which I'm proud of this council for holding to their guns. And, you know, we could have had a lot of low-paying, really underutilized jobs there. And it's getting very, very close to that property selling to a company that's going to put it to good use and bring high-paying jobs. You know, the Dow property, again, too, the chemical property, you know, I've said it before, we need to thank God that the Port Authority is involved with that. You know, number one, it was a Tier 1 chemical facility since the late 1940s, a lot of dangerous, dangerous chemicals. And for those of us that grew up on Bernard Avenue and in the neighboring communities, in a lot of ways, the companies were back there were always very good companies and productive companies. They were also very, very dangerous companies. I remember, you know, one of my first meetings as a mayor said, where do we go if that, a bad accident happens there? And the response was nowhere. You know, when chlorine spills, I guess you run the opposite way from which way the wind's blowing at the time. So anyway, want to thank God. That's also zoned, by the way, for those who wanted to fight that, you know, for a bunch of old cars to sit on it, you know, to be a virtually useless piece of property for us as a city. So the Port Authority, thank God, they're involved with it. We're working with them hand and foot. They need our help, but they bought that property knowing that they were facing $5 to $7 million in demolition and remediation, environmental remediation costs. So, it's not often somebody wants to buy 25 acres and they add $5, $6, $7 million onto the buying price of it. So, we thank God for that. And again, that box culvert, Darrell Courtney has his punch list there at Highway Drive and Hunt Road. Those are being completed. Another $900,000 project, 6 foot tall by 12 foot wide culvert. And that was collapsing in areas. Had it collapsed, we would have had some lakes on the creek where there's homes now. So again, another $400,000 in grant dollars that were used there that we thank God that we got. And just a few other things for me. On August 28th, our American Legion's Ladies Auxiliary will host an event at Koenig Park from noon to 11 p.m. August 28th. They're calling it a Taste of Reading. It'll have local food establishments. They'll have food there. At noontime, Reading High School's band will perform. Right after that, Reading High School's dance team, St. Peter Paul Academy's dance team, 2 bands, good food. Again, the American Legion and especially their wonderful Ladies Auxiliary working hard to, again, reach financial security and also be a vital part of our community and get wonderful things done. And again, we thank God for them. Our outstanding annual antique car show, and maybe Tim might want to come back up, will be September 12th. I believe this might be 11th year. Do you remember, Tim? 10th, 11th?
12.
Maybe 12th.
Well, we did not have it, this is the 12th year, but we didn't have it last year, so
Last year.
technically the 11th.
So you know what? In years past, 150 beautiful cars, including our antique Model A's, Model T's. Beautiful. It's a beautiful program from a wonderful group. This will be their last year there because Dow Chemical, again, is going to start building. The only uncontaminated part of the property the port bought is where our car show is. And, as of this time next year, we're hoping they're building there. Because when they start building there, it's going to be major, substantial new earnings tax dollars for the city and property taxes for our schools. So next year, we'll working already with our school superintendent, who's going to reach out with the school board and maybe, and we need to go to our school board and superintendent to have it start next year up at in the school parking lot, but working on that. It's a wonderful thing. Please get out to the Antique Car Show, September 12th, a Sunday. Our Lady of the Valley, formerly St. Peter and Paul Church, September Fest will be September 18th and 19th. And again, I always call it St. Peter and Paul parking lot down there on Vine Street. Wonderful festival every year. Our Reading Bridal District will have their annual Fall in Love event on Benson Street, which will be on September 22nd. Benson Street will be closed from 5 p.m. till approximately midnight that night, but a wonderful event. Our Reading Bridal District has paid great dividends. There wasn't one when I became mayor, not an organized Reading Bridal Association, I guess I should call it. But, ever since we got them on their feet and helped them get a web page and helped get them started as a city, they've run with it, and an excellent organization that's working on all kinds of things, including, according to our economic development consultants a couple months ago, there wasn't a place available on Benson. And I've had several of the owners of shops on Benson say it's never been better. And a lot of that's due to the Reading Bridal Association, working with the Chamber of Commerce and with the city and our economic development consultant. And by all means, we want to keep that going for all we're worth. The Reading Historical Society will have their Settlement Day dinner on October 22nd at Hafey Fieldhouse. This was canceled last year as well, but Don and Rose Lindeman will be honored at that. There aren't two people more deserving of a wonderful honor than Don and Rose. Birchie Schulte, and for those of you who don't know Birchie's been an active member of this community, member of your school board, and worked at Smith Smeads for years, and it's incredible what St. John's United Church of Christ does year in, year out, contributing to this community. So Birchie and also Derek Leach will be recognized there. Also our Historical Society's been hit very, very hard here recently. A board member, Mike Leisring, passed away more or less suddenly. Then we lose Jim Lichtenberg, who was really the driving force behind the Historical Society for years and years. And as of the last 3 years, Rick and Cindy Roth, not only became involved in the Historical Society, but, did a book that, it's an inch and a half thick of World War I veterans from our community, and looked up all kind of interesting facts about them. In fact, we had 3 World War I veterans that grew up in what's now our police parking lot, right behind the building here, in the house there. But Cindy Ross passed away suddenly, unexpectedly, so our Historical Society has taken a bit of a hit here, but we're regrouping and going to keep it going. So October 22nd, please try to attend that event. We are going to have that building painted as a city. The city owns the Historical Society building, looking into a new roof on it. So we're going to keep it going. And last for me, our farmers market every Friday from 4 to 7 on Vine Street, really has turned into a place to go. It's enjoyable. Donna Stahl grew up on Bernard Avenue. Now Donna Wiggins has a 16-year-old Roger Bacon student, plays live music there, absolutely wonderful. Wonderful produce there, soaps, lotions, breads that are out of this world. You need to make it. And anyway, other than that, the last couple things, you always ask people, please, again, get to know your neighbors, look out for them, call the police when you see any suspicious or illegal activity. Please help us keep litter down. And, last for me, I just want to thank everybody who continues to do all the wonderful things they do. Thanks, Chris.
Mr. Powell.
One thing, Bo, did you see the press release today from the Port Authority?
I heard about it and I read it.
So, yeah, it was good news. So they've, I guess, signed the development agreement, and it sounds like it's moving forward. So
now we're working with our schools. We get that TIF in place, and it'll really start rolling. They had hoped to start building this summer. It'll probably be next summer, but they hope to start doing site plans. Matter of fact, that property that the port had said, really, by the end of last October, we weren't going to be able to use it. And then, the project got delayed a bit, and then it was to the end of May this year, and now it's to the 1st of October, which spares our car show. Too late for really Reading High School soccer to move. But after October 1st, we're hoping site work and development happens, because that could be $500,000 in earnings tax revenue a year for us. $500,000. And it'll be a while, it'll be 30 years before the school realizes all of the property taxes, because 70% of the new property taxes will go towards the infrastructure, towards the sewers and the water mains and the roads. But the schools will, after these 2 buildings, I believe it's $160,000 a year, which is not a small amount of money. So anyway, we're cheering them on all the way.
Anyone else have any?
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. I saw it
okay.
on Channel 12.
Yes, I don't know how much they read, but it was a nice release.
Yeah, Port Authority estimates 2023
Yeah.
to be completed with Phase 1.
That's 2 buildings and hopefully lots of jobs.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mayor Bemis. We have the Law Director, Mr. Stevens.
I have no report, and I don't have any update, Justin, so I've heard nothing, so. All right, that's on the gas pipeline, in case you're interested.
Any questions for Mr. Stevenson? Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. There is a treasurer's report that was sent out by mail.
I can read it.
Go ahead.
Hold on.
We'll leave the
I've got it.
the highlights for him to do his usual number crunching with, but
He says, we collected a total of $633,613, which was $232,469 lower than last July. However, don't forget that tax collection dates for last year were extended, and this is why you see the difference. The good news is that year-to-date we have collected $5,245,214, which is $672,315 more than what we collected at this time last year. We are running 14.7% ahead in collections compared to last year.
very
That's
good.
awesome.
Very good. Thank you for that, Carla. Auditor, Ms. Smith.
Thanks, Chris. I just wanted to give the update. I think everybody today got sent out the reports for July. I do have to wait a minute for the other side of the world, the treasurer's office, the water department, to close their books in order to close mine for the month, and I have to audit all that stuff. So I've completed it today. Everything is looking right on target for what we talked about as far as expenditures. Nothing's come up that's been, like kind of a crazy outlier, just so you guys know. But we're already into August, so as my broken record says, December 3rd is the close of, anything not normal purchases. And what I mean by that is like phone bill, Duke bill, things like that. So all the department heads have assured me that, anything for their big purchases, maybe, for their kind of expense budgets, are being thought about currently. Of course, there's things in the works that you can't control, but that allows Patrick and I to do what we do at the end of the year to give you those adjustments on appropriations. So we're all on the same page with that. So that's looking pretty good. I'm still turning in all our numbers to Ohio Checkbook for transparency so that anyone can see our expenses and where they're sent out, and kind of how they're paid. So that's still happening. And tonight I was also down at National Night Out with the mayor, and other people were definitely there too. And We Thrive ran a booth where people got to show their support for the Reading police officers. So we have a ton of pictures from all the students that attended tonight. So I'll get to drop these off with the Reading police officers so they can see them. A lot of people wrote notes, and it says, "Hands down, you are the best." So a lot of kids were able to draw their handprint on it. So it was really cute. I got to trace some kids' hands that asked me to, and then they colored it in. So it was a good time. And then I took my little one, who's 20 months, around, and he got to sit in the big fire truck. And I asked Chief Owens if he was hiring, because he needs to start working. Just kidding. So it was a lot of fun to be down there, and it was awesome to see the community support. So just another great event. They trade in and trade out. Tonight we had the boat crew. We had some helicopters and things. So it was just a really awesome event. And the library was even there, and the 911. There were so many people that signed up for that. And everybody else that came out to help. The food truck, Mr. Softy, of course, was a big hit. The K-9 unit. Evendale even has a four-wheeler. So that was kind of cool because my little one wanted to sit on it multiple times, and he definitely let him sit on it multiple times. So it was a lot of fun to see everybody down there, including in the audience and up here. So just thanks for our community for doing another awesome thing. As far as my office is concerned, we're just kind of cooking along with different things to get things paid and work with our department heads. So if anybody has any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, that's all for me.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much. And that was an awesome ATV.
Yeah.
It was like 6 kids on it when I saw it.
Yeah. Oh, and hold on, one more thing. Also, the We Thrive, we also have students involved. And the Zander family ran a safety bingo. So 2 of the daughters of the Zander family went with me to purchase prizes, and all the safety things that they came up with, they generated on the computer, which is awesome that they are well beyond what I can even do. So they had a bunch of safety things, and the kids had to, daub the little laminated papers with those bingo daubers. Anybody going back to MND bingo days? I love doing that, including on New Year's. And so they planned the whole thing and ran the whole thing, and it was so cute to watch all the kids get a prize if they've got, bingo, and just have a lot of fun with it. So even our kids getting involved in doing great things for other kids in our community. So.
Yeah, Chris and Mary Zander and their crew are incredible people, aren't they?
Yes.
Contributors.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Then, council committee reports. We will go to utilities, lands, and buildings. Mr. Lindeman.
Thank you,
Chairman
Mr.
Lindeman.
President. On the 13th of July, my committee, Utilities, Buildings, and Lands, met, and we were discussing some improvements that could be made to Benson Street, the Bridal District. The mayor mentioned that we're already starting to pave, or will be starting to pave, parts of Benson Street with how far we can go with the money we have. But anyway, we talked about that. We also talked about the pavers. Some of them need some work. Some work had been done by utility companies that moved poles or set things, and and didn't come back and finish what they should have done. So hopefully, we can work with Duke Energy and Spectrum and try to get them to come down on Benson Street and maybe work with trying to clean up some of that wiring. And it's very expensive to put the wiring underground, as we all know. But it would be a nice goal to have, to clean up Benson Street for the bridal district. I think it would make it so much nicer. We talked a number of things. I won't go into everything here, but possibilities of maybe a fountain of some kind, that sort of thing. The bridal district itself had a meeting on the 15th of July, and unfortunately, I had a doctor's appointment, so I was not able to attend, but maybe Katie did. So I can't say anything too much about that. On the 27th, another subject, I called Carla Belcher over at the North College Hill Garden and made an appointment to see her on the next day at 1731 Goodman Avenue. It's on school property, and that's where they have their community gardens. It's very nice. They had about 8 different plots, so they had a nice little building where they kept a wheelbarrow, a couple hose, shovels, that sort of thing, hose, different utilities you would need to plant a garden. So I'm assuming, she didn't say, but I'm assuming that those were, you lend them out to the people that come in and plant their radishes and tomatoes and whatever. And it was very nice. She's very, very, very helpful. Nice lady. Also went over to Wyoming, and their community garden is just awesome. It would be nice if someday we could have something like that in Reading. They have raised platforms for the gardens. They have numbered. There are 60 of them, 60 plots. I mean, it goes from here way beyond the end of the wall there. And they have 4 locations where they have tap water that they can water. They do charge for it. They have a nice little building. It's probably got a 10-foot fence around it, and you have to have a code to get in. And then when you finish doing what you have to do, you also have to have a code getting out. So it's very well protected. You have something like that. If it's open, you worry about vandals, people picking up a tomato and just throwing it for the heck of it. But anyway, that's their place over there is just really, really, really nice. On the 29th then, I met with Mayor, and we talked about potential for garden spots here in the city of Reading, and pat myself on the back. Because of the fact that I have put these books together that show all the properties that we own in the city of Reading, we were able to look through that and pick out what we thought were some very high potential areas. And before I say anything else, I want to say that Sabrina, who doesn't brag about herself very much, is very much involved in trying to help us get a $10,000 grant. It's Keeping the City Safe and Clean grant, I believe. And this you have to read all the details, but I think this would fit in very well with this community garden. Also looking into getting a grant for collection of water off of the adjacent building, and then contain that water so that you can use that for water in garden. It also diverts that water from going in the sewer and so on and so forth. So I think there's a lot of potential for this, just for neighbors to get together and socialize a little bit, compare, what they're planting and what they're harvesting and so on and so forth. So anyway, again, Sabrina's helping with that. We need to come up with some matching funds, because I think this $10,000, it can be matching cash, labor, in-kind donations. So if we get a $25 wheelbarrow donated, then they give us $25 in cash to build the beds or whatever. So anyway, I'm very excited about it. I'm hoping that between the Parks Foundation and the mayor's rainy day fund, maybe we can come up with some matching funds to get this off the ground. I'm kind of excited about it. I always had a garden from when I was little. My mom and dad had 8 children, so we almost had to have a garden. But I still enjoy planting tomatoes and peppers and that sort of thing. And many people in Reading like to have their little garden. You know, I'm looking at one right over there, and another one. So anyway, that's my report, Chris.
Yeah, Mr. President.
Yes.
I just wanted to piggyback off of that, and I just want to say, since I started in 2016, a community garden has been something that's been mentioned in multiple different places that I've been to. So, Dawn, thank you so much for help giving the vocabulary to that. And then I'd be remiss to not mention, you know, Bo and Patrick's help with it, of just seeing it and then kind of giving me like, hey, is this an okay path to go down? Of course, working with Susan Slavey and Seth too, to kind of figure out, you know, what are other items needed, a little bit through the Parks Foundation, a little bit through the city. So as we know here in Reading, it's a community effort on anything that we're trying to accomplish, and just making sure to get the right people at the table. And we know these grants can be timely, and sometimes, you know, they're smaller, but if they can start to make an impact, you know, we're not, the Wyoming one is great, you know, and we're going to test the process and hopefully do 10 beds at first and then go from there. So, and then there's some other park needs that, you know, Susan and Seth kind of provided to me for parks too. So it's just good to always have that working list, so that when we do see something, you know, when any of us see a grant opportunity that comes our way, to get it in the right hands or to already know the vocabulary of it. It's just great to kind of all work together, to everyone to add their piece to it. So I'm hoping to get it done by tomorrow. It's due on Friday, and I did have to speak with the representative, and she said she hasn't had too many applicants this run around. So basically I was asking her, is it even worth our time to, you know, apply, not in a mean way, but I'm not wasting our time and I don't want to waste theirs. So she thought our ideas were great from the list that Susan provided and from the community garden standpoint. So I'm excited. I'm hopeful we'll at least get something. So the ceiling is 10,000. So of course I always shoot for 10,000. So
If you need help finishing that, Sabrina, you can
perfect. Yep.
leave. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you need help, let us know.
All right, will do. Thank you. And
Thanks
I
for
think
mentioning-
everyone's already provided the vocabulary. I just got to form it into. So I've definitely talked to both of you already and to Patrick. So I'm just going to write it down, and then Susan's list earlier from last year even. So all that is super helpful. So thank you all.
Thanks for mentioning Susan and Seth, Mayor and Patrick, because even though I'm a little older, I get a little nervous when I'm in front of microphones, so I do forget things.
Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you.
and then also Dawn passed it, you know, to all of us, and then at the same time, within the same hour, Christy, our representative from Hamilton County Public Health, also forwarded it. So we've got a lot of good people in our corner. And then I know, and I was just talking to Christy tonight, you know, the version of the dollar in 1995 when I used to help write grants, you know, from the student perspective, didn't have to be matching funds, and it didn't have to be reimbursement dollars. But somewhere along the line, I'm in finances, somebody messed it up for the rest of us, and now everything is, you know, matching funds and things like that. They don't just give money to nonprofits without that reporting concept or the matching concept. So it's just good to have the backing to at least try to get some of these things started in our community, and then be creative for the matching dollars. So we all have a little sweat equity, you know, and then maybe there's the city and companies that can help fill in some of the rest. So if we got a specific ask, I'm sure there's someone in the community that can help us out. So thanks to everybody.
Yeah, the motto, you like to help those who help themselves.
Yeah,
And that's where it's at, so.
absolutely.
Parks Foundation always is willing to accept any donation, so Mr. Albrink is the treasurer, I believe. So
Always?
Yeah.
Always.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lindeman. Any other questions for Mr. Lindeman? Mr. Lindeman, you don't have to reach real far to pat yourself on the back. Just ask me to, and I can.
Okay. Randy's closer.
Yes, okay.
Pass it along.
Zoning, planning, and environment. Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Chris. My committee met prior to our last meeting to discuss a potential ordinance to deal with unsolicited written materials becoming litter. We also discussed zoning information for little libraries. I hope to bring something to the floor for each of these at our next meeting. Something else that has come to my attention is that FEMA is rolling out a new methodology for rating flood insurance policy called Risk Rating 2.0. It is my understanding that beginning on October the 1st, 2021, all new policies will be rated according to the methodology, along with existing policies up for renewal. All remaining policies renewing on or after April 1st, 2022 will be subject to the new rating methodology. I would encourage all residents with flood insurance policies to contact their agents to see how this new rating methodology is going to affect their premiums. It used to largely be driven on elevation. They'll still look at elevation, but they're going to be looking at a variety of other factors when they assign the premiums. Some are going to go up, some are going to go down, the way they're talking. Another thing, and my research for that, I came across another thing that I think would be worthwhile. I would like to see our administration explore what it would take to join FEMA's community rating system. Participation in this system could lead to substantial discounts on flood insurance for policyholders, depending on how the city would score on the rating system. Locally, the only community that I noticed that did that was New Richmond. The communities in Ohio that I saw, the highest was 15%, the lowest was 0%. And it's for different, like, they put out metrics, different programs you do within the city dealing with floodplain management, and you get points for that. And the more points your city gets, the higher the discount all the policyholders get. So, if we could get a 5 or a 10% discount, it could, I'm sure, make a real difference for some of these people. So I do, if you want, Bo, I do have something printed out on it that you could have. So,
Absolutely.
and then that way, any questions on it or anything like that, I'm more than willing to help. So,
Is that a representative type contact that they would want from Reading to be part of their, do we need a representative to it?
I think it's something we apply for.
Okay.
And they come in and kind of audit you. It has a lot to do with building department and that kind of stuff. And there's a whole series, they kind of list the different metrics in here and what the maximum points you could receive for it, what the average points you received are, just so you get some kind of idea what kind of discount you might be able to get for those particular points if you're able to score them. So,
I do want to see that. I know Patrick and I have worked through Representative Brad Wenstrup's office. A lot of Brad's district is
Right.
in the floodplain, along the Ohio River, and we had received information within the last 6-8 months from Brad on that. We'll continue with that, but I do want to see what you have.
Okay.
If there's a way to do it, we'll do it.
great.
Any other questions from Mr. Powell? Thank you very much, Mr. Powell.
Great.
Laws and Contracts, Chairwoman, Ms. Adeshigo.
Thanks, Chris. I sent out the revised version of the rental registration ordinance, striking the requirement for listing the tenants. Mr. Gertz also sent out an alternative ordinance. I do wish that it had been discussed in committee before it was first sent out. But with this new information, I would like to table both ordinances. If we need to take a vote on that, I'm not sure. And then move this back into the Laws and Contracts Committee for discussion. Possibly work on a combination of the two ordinances. I do like the idea of stating why it's needed. Situations like the Tagaters is a perfect example. The ordinance that I presented does mention at the beginning of it the property maintenance issues and explains the need for it. So I do want to have that in there. As far as the fines, fees, anything like that, looking at combining the two or how we can rework it, basically just work together to come up with an ordinance. So other than that, if we vote to move that back into committee meeting, then I'd want to set up a committee meeting with Mr. Powell and Mr. Gertz.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we table these two and that they be referred to committee.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Albrecht, seconded by Mr. Fischescher, to table both of the current ordinances and to put it back in the committee for reevaluation and hopefully a new ordinance that still meets all the needs that have come up recently and were in the past. I will take a roll call on that.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passed, so both of those ordinances are now off the agenda and tabled. Do you have more to your committee report, or? Or do you-
That was it. I'll get with Mr. Powell and Mr. Gertz to set up a committee meeting and then let everyone
Any
know.
questions for Ms. Edichico? Thank you, Mrs. Edichico. Public Health and Safety Chairman, Mr. Randy Fischescher.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a very brief report. I was not able to get the statistic from the police and fire for the month of July. I'm sure with the National Night Out, they were a little bit busy. So once I get those, I'll share those with you probably at the next meeting. Couple things I did want to mention. One was myself and Mr. Powell will be walking door to door on Dottie Court Saturday, this coming Saturday, starting probably around 10:30 in the morning, to discuss the parking issues up there. We would like to get something established before school starts. And that way it's good to go and the girls will know right away what's going on up there. So if you live on Dottie, you'll see our two smiling faces at some point Saturday morning. I was at National Night Out for a while. They had a fantastic crowd there. As I was getting down there, I heard that all 360 hot dogs were given away. So we were.
You didn't need
down.
one.
I didn't get one. I didn't get
Oh,
a
I said you didn't
ice
need
cream
one.
cone either. So. But it was great. It was great to see that many people out. It was great to see as the mayor says, our police and fire department are fantastic, but they also rely on mutual aid and, police force, multiple different mutual aids, and the fire department, I was glad to see the stroke team there. That's something extremely special, and talking with one of the lieutenants who happened to be my son, Reading uses them quite a bit, and they're a great asset for us.
And that's a good thing in the entire country, not even just in our area to have, so.
Right. Oh,
we're a
yeah.
front runner on that in the country, not even just here.
So it's great things. So, I'm glad to see it. And like I said, hopefully at the next meeting, I'll have some statistics if Chris will let me give a short report
Sure.
at that meeting.
It'll be up to
That's all I
your
have,
fellow
President.
councilman as far as.
Too, if I can just reply that, Pat's due back, but I think in the office even Thursday, Friday, there already have been communications between MND and especially Todd you want to talk to and Dottie Court. We realize Dottie Court is not good, but there have been conversations there, so you guys might.
My thought is, and I was talking with Dave before the meeting, my thought is that we might not even need an ordinance. I think just if we sit down and discuss it, I think Patrick can put the signs up,
Okay.
and
Just-
I don't think an ordinance would be needed, and, we're gonna play it by ear and see how things go, and, we can always expand it if need be.
At the end of last school year, one of my granddaughter's best friends lives down Dottie, and just turning off a lorry onto it was a challenge for me and my pickup truck.
Yeah.
I mean, they park so close to that corner. But it's been an ongoing issue. Todd will probably be able to update you more than
I've
anybody.
talked to Todd
Yeah,
several
okay.
times about it. so.
Because hasn't been very happy with it. Yeah.
Whenever you talk about doing away with parking, there's
Oh, there's.
a lot of issues, as you
Oh.
well know, and I well know,
Oh.
so.
You'd think that you were, I don't know.
Firstborn,
It's not,
so.
it's not pretty. I hear you.
Any questions for Mr. Fishasher? I do. How'd you and Mr. Powell team up on that? You're not on the same committee, or?
Hey, I like Dave.
Well, actually, how we wound up together is the constituent actually approached me first, and then I started talking to Randy about it, and we're kind of working on it together.
Good team.
So.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fishasher. Service, Mr. Olbrink.
Thank you, Mr. President. The truck that we authorized the purchase of last year is finally in, properly outfitted, and is in service, finally.
Very good.
The test for the mechanic was supposed to take place last Saturday. Hopefully, we'll get some good people that actually pass the test this time so that we can hire someone and hire someone quickly. And finally, I hope that we can do some talking about purchasing a mini excavator for the service department. I think it's one of the pieces of equipment that would be well for them to have. So that's it for tonight.
And one other thing for you, Denny, when Third Street will be repaved, I think from start to finish. And Duke Energy is going to do that as part of the demo work they did on the street. But they're responsible for some curbing. There's a lot of others that Daryl's now identifying. I hope as council, it would be a tragedy to have a street totally repaved that's going to last 20, 30 years with totally deteriorated curbs, because you have to dig into the street to redo curbs. So I do hope that gets bumped up and done. It would just be, you know, and I'm not sure who's going to do that curb work. I would imagine it might be Alita that's going to do already what Duke damaged. I think we'd be able to get a decent price from them to do the rest. It'd just be terrible to repave a street and have bad curbs.
So is that something that's gonna stay in administration?
Well, Daryl's getting prices, you know, prime for that, Dennis. Make sure he gets those prices for you.
Just so long as it's straight curbs.
What's that?
Just so long as it's
He's got
straight curbs.
qualifications.
Box curves, yes.
Box.
Whatever.
I'm a big fan.
Mr. Lindeman.
Speaking of Duke Energy and doing curbs and that sort of thing, I noticed that there were a lot of curbs that were crumbling on Market Street. And I talked to Patrick, and he said, I'll look into it, I'll see what I can do. Well, you saw what he could do. They did almost every new curb where Duke Energy did any work. They did pretty much all new curbs, so.
Very good.
I would just like to request that when Dad leaves, that we do a box curb somewhere and just put a plaque right there. It
Right
says
there.
Denny Albrink's box curb. Do not make this a rolled curb or
Well,
whatever.
we could just rename them the Auburn curve.
Let's
I
do
want an
it.
Auburn curve.
And everybody know exactly
I
what.
don't think I've ever heard him complain more over
Yeah.
over curbs.
Well, you know, we get the arguments both ways, but the box curves the way they need to be to do what they're intended to do.
Right.
And that's just,
It's too easy to roll up on them and mess up the lawn behind it, and then they get water behind there, and it freezes, and it pops it up, so.
you sat for 12 years in that office getting the complaints, didn't you? Denny knows it well.
Thank you, Mr. Albrink. And Recreation, Mr. Tim's not here. Mr. Tom's not here. There is a special committee here. In the agenda, it says none currently, but I thought we did establish a special committee for the Bridal District. I do believe that there was a nomination that I made of Mr. Lindeman being the chairman. I'm not real sure how that got left because there was some disruption and negative on that, but my understanding is that we voted and that you are the chairman of that committee. So
That's what I
we'll
understood.
continue to add this to the,
Yeah, Randy seconded that twice.
okay.
Hey, let me pat you on the back.
So I just want to make sure from now on, we'll have a name there. So if you would, let Carla know the name of your committee. you can come up with whatever name is
Oh,
special.
don't give him that leeway.
I think we're almost treating it as a
The
subcommittee
Lindeman
to.
Bridal District, okay, whatever.
I think it already has a name, but it's not the bridal district.
Right, so whatever you want to do. I mean, I understand that there was some couple people who came to me and said, you know, this really, we want it bigger than just the bridal district. And I guess my opinion was it can start there and maybe morph into something bigger as it develops, so. You go either way you want.
Sure,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep. Any other business?
For now, what would you like it called?
Well, he'll get it to you.
Oh, okay.
Just call it Don's for now.
Yeah. Don's,
It actually has a name. Bo, do you remember what it is? The business district, something there on Benson Street?
Oh, yeah, it's Reading Bridal Association.
Is that what you
I'm
wanna
sorry,
call it?
I'm not,
Okay, we can call it that.
The
Okay.
Reading,
Bridal District.
the RBD.
okay. Other business, anyone? Then we will go to the legislative session. Any resolutions?
no, sir.
And we have one remaining ordinance, which will be a, what is that one?
Should be the third reading.
Third, yeah, I was gonna say that, but I wanted to make sure. Third reading, go ahead.
An ordinance amending certain sections of the Reading Code of Ordinances that address council meetings and declaring an emergency.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Fishesher, seconded by Ms. Edichico to adopt the ordinance. Roll call?
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Albrink,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fishesher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
That ordinance is adopted, and the ordinance number,
2021-24.
okay? Any miscellaneous business? Thank you, this meeting is adjourned.